Massachusetts rental laws play an important role in protecting the rights of both landlords and tenants while clearly stating the legal obligations of both parties. By making sure you understand these rules, you can avoid costly penalties and conflicts during the tenancy. In this video, we'll give you an overview of what the state law says about lease agreements, required disclosures, security deposits, and evictions. We're eForms, the largest online database of fillable legal forms. Check out the link below to access a fillable lease agreement template. Let's first go over the basics. What is a lease agreement? A lease agreement is a rental contract between a landlord and a tenant. Depending on the type of agreement, whether it's a month-to-month lease, a standard agreement, or rent-to-own, both the landlord and tenant are bound to the specific terms regarding the length of the lease, termination, and more. Because a lease agreement is legally binding once it's signed, breaking the contract can result in hefty fines or even legal action. Next, let's take a look at the required disclosures. In Massachusetts, there are a total of 5 disclosures that the landlord must provide to the tenant. Fire insurance. Within the first 15 days of the lease, the landlord is legally required to disclose the terms and conditions of the fire insurance on the property. Inventory checklist. Within 10 days of receiving the security deposit or the start of the lease, the landlord must provide the tenant with a checklist to write down any necessary repairs or defects on the premises. The tenant must return the completed list within 15 days. Security deposit receipt. The landlord must provide the tenant with a receipt of the security deposit within the first 10 days of the lease. Follow-up deposit statement. Within 30 days of receiving the security deposit, the landlord is required to provide the tenant with the name of the bank where the deposit is being held, the amount of the deposit, and the account number. Lead-based paint disclosure. Under federal law, the landlord must provide a disclosure about the possible presence of lead-based paint on the property if it was built on or before 1978. Now, let's take a look at the security deposit laws. In Massachusetts, there are strict procedures that a landlord must follow in dealing with a security deposit. They can be penalized up to 3 times the amount of the security deposit, along with a 5% penalty and attorney fees if they do not abide by the following procedures. The security deposit must be deposited within 30 days to an interest-bearing bank account in Massachusetts under the name of the tenant. It must earn an interest rate of 5% or less. If the tenant stays on the property for more than a year, the landlord must provide the tenant with accrued interest on the deposit as well as an annual statement. In addition, under Massachusetts law, the maximum amount that a landlord can ask for is 1 month's rent. As for returning the deposit, the landlord must give back the deposit within 30 days after the tenant has moved out. The deposit must also include any accrued interest. Finally, let's cover Massachusetts eviction laws. In Massachusetts, a landlord may evict a tenant under the following requirements. Non-payment of rent. If the tenant is late on rent, the landlord can issue a 14-day notice to quit. This means that the tenant has 14 days to pay the owed amount in full or move out. Non-compliance. While there is no legal notice requirement for terminating a lease for non-compliance, the landlord is expected to provide the tenant with a reasonable time to vacate the property. Common practice is 30 days. Termination. If the landlord wants to terminate a month-to-month lease for reasons other than non-payment or non-compliance, they must provide 30 days notice to the tenant. Want to learn more about Massachusetts rental laws? Visit the link in the description for a comprehensive breakdown on all things related to lease agreements, evictions, and more.